All right. Welcome to another episode of Black People Kind of News, episode 10. Today we're going to be doing a heavy focus on bad cops, bad cops. Make sure you guys share the stream. Make sure you guys hit the like button. Make sure you guys let other people know that I run these streams for you guys. So tonight we're going to be doing a lot of talking about bad cops, man. A lot of talking tonight about bad cops. So once again, if you guys like the stream, make sure you guys hit the like button. Make sure you guys hit the share button. Make sure you let other people know that I run these streams for you guys. Because tonight is going to be a doozy. Tonight is going to be a doozy. Tonight we're going to get into some stuff that generally I don't like to get into for the most part, but we are going to get into it, man. We going to get into it. So let's get into our first story. This story comes from my home state of South Carolina. You have a South Carolina police officer whose name is Vincent Nocera, who was arrested on third-degree assault and misconduct in office charges in connection to an incident that took place allegedly 5 months ago. Now, according to the arrest warrants, this guy was holding a juvenile patient, and he was going to transfer this juvenile patient over to a psychiatric ward. And apparently, this guy allegedly assaulted that juvenile. Now, with that being said, this guy has been arrested and given some pretty serious charges, and this follows a very unique pattern in South Carolina where people who are vulnerable, people who are mentally disabled, even people who are juveniles are often abused by the state's law enforcement. And for some reason, people don't want to be honest about that, and that's one of the other reasons why I do what I do, to expose this kind of stuff to the general public and to the general American public. And, stuff like this, you really got to look deeper into this stuff, because this agency in particular, with the Department of Juvenile Justice and Department of Mental Health, they have a very unique history when it comes to people who are being harmed, by the law enforcement in this particular state. Now, this wasn't the Department of Juvenile Justice, but this was a state law enforcement agency that was in charge of making sure that people who are vulnerable are not harmed. And, Vincent Nocera, he was shouting, MFer as he's, hitting the patient. He's screaming that. And, if he's convicted, he faces a maximum penalty of 30 days in jail and a $500 fine. And the misconduct in office charge, the actual assault charge carries less time, as a maximum sentence in terms of the actual, the actual charge. That you would think that the charge that would send him away for longer in terms of a maximum penalty would be the actual assault charge. That's only like 30 days and a $500 fine. But the misconduct in office charge carries a maximum punishment of up to 1 year in prison and a $1,000 fine. Right? So this guy is being punished more for acting badly as a police officer versus actually assaulting someone who's under the age of 18 who's also mentally disabled. Wow. And the funny part about all this is that Blue Lives Matter will call that guy a hero. They will still call that guy a hero, I guarantee you. And not only will they call that guy a hero, they'll be proud to do so. Because, you and I, as the general American public, when we see stuff like this, we see things from a standpoint of, wow, that's disgusting. But not police officers. That's just not how they see things. Not at all. Not at all. So this story is connected to another story, but I want to make sure I cover these separately. So, because like this here is linked to one of the largest police misconduct, well, actually the largest police misconduct settlement in American history at $45 million. The largest one. Right? So let's get deeper into this. Timothy Robinson, how you doing? Much blessings to you as well. Salute, salute. Make sure you share the on stream. Make sure whoever's jumping in, make sure you share it. Let's get deeper into this story here, man. So this story comes from New Haven in Connecticut. 2 New Haven police officers have been fired for the 2020 arrest that left a black man named Randy Cox paralyzed. And so Randy Cox, he was paralyzed from a June 19th, 2022 incident involving 2 New Haven police officers who have now been fired. And it's actually more New Haven police officers who were involved, but 4 of the 6 members of the New Haven Board of Police Commissioners voted to terminate officers Jocelyn Lamvadier and Luis Rivera, who, let's just be clear. These officers, when this guy was paralyzed, they started joking and making fun of him. Seriously. Those 2 officers should not only be fired, they should be behind bars for what they did to this man, for the negligence and making fun of him when he became paralyzed. It's just ridiculous. And I want to look up this other story here. I'm looking up another settlement real quick because I want you guys to see this. It's the largest police misconduct settlement in history. Largest settlement ever. Let's look at that. So this incident here, I'm going to archive this. This incident here is the largest police misconduct settlement in history. So this is from the New York Times, right? I want to make sure I cover this. Randy Cox, who was a black man who was left paralyzed due to the negligent behavior of New Haven police officers in Connecticut, has been given the largest police misconduct settlement in history. $45 million. And that cost is the man's continued health care, and that was a major factor when deciding on how much money to pay him. And so Randy Cox, this man has been paralyzed because he was being transported in a police vehicle. The police vehicle came to a sudden stop. He flew forward and he became paralyzed. And this is a historic settlement. Historic settlement. I'm so glad that he's gotten some money, but the problem is that won't bring this man's legs back. That won't bring this man's ability to walk back. You know? And the officers made fun of him. They were joking around, laughing as this man was complaining about himself being paralyzed. Wow. Wow. They were joking around, laughing. They thought it was funny. And they just cost the taxpayers a ridiculous amount of money. They cost the taxpayers a ridiculous amount of money. And they were represented by the actual family and Randy Cox himself. He's represented by Benjamin Crump. You know, shout out to Ben Crump for this, man. I don't like the fact that taxpayers have to actually keep shelling out all this money, because I think that this is definitely another argument for reparations. Definitely. You know, instead of us having taxpayers shell out all this money, why don't we have black people who already got the cash, who can just go ahead and just doggone sue? And then you make it where it's the police pay out all these freaking settlements. It comes out of their budget. And if you don't want it to come out of the police union's budget or the police department's budget, then put it completely on the officer. And if the officer can't pay, then that's where the officer's insurance and bonds come into play. You sue them. And you also find out if that city is insured by an insurer. You sue the insurer. And what I would like to see going forward is that not only do we get reparations so that we can represent guys like this, you know, on the fly without having to crowdfund, but I also want, you know, there to be a change in the law. I think that this is a historic settlement, and I'm so glad that Randy Cox got it, because whatever, you know, a black man gets harmed because of the negligence of the police, or even being directly harmed by the police, oftentimes what you'll find is that people will make excuses for it, right? But in the case of Randy Cox, I'm not making excuses. I'm saying that this settlement is great, that he got it, but it's going to come from taxpayers who didn't harm this man, who didn't do anything to this man. It should come from the police. It should come from their budgets. I'm glad he got it, and you know what? If push comes to shove, overall, yes, I think someone like him deserves it. But I want there to be more pain suffered from the officers. Why should the taxpayers pay all these police misconduct settlements, all these millions of dollars, all these, I mean, actually, some years and almost every year for the past 20 years, billions of dollars. But the police keep their same funding. What about that seems right to you? Don't seem right to me, man. Don't seem right to me. Don't seem right to me. Let's refresh this story here. So this story comes from Kentucky. You have a police officer who faces multiple charges for speeding over 100 miles per hour with a 3-year-old in the car. Wow. Just wow. William Boris is an officer with the Chivoli Police Department in Kentucky, and he was charged with 20 counts of speeding 26 miles per hour or more over the speed limit, 8 counts of second-degree wanton endangerment, and 1 count of official misconduct. This guy, right? This guy was driving over 100 miles per hour with a 3-year-old in the car. Man, oh man, Blue Lives Matter. Is this your man's? You said that all cops are heroes. So I don't know if cops who endanger people like this and endanger someone who's under the age of 18 and someone who's that young, I don't know if that's what you call a hero. Just saying. Just saying. Just saying. So sad. So sad, man. So sad. Let's get into this, though. Let's get into this. So, let's get into the story here, man. So this story comes from New York. A former Trooper of the Year has been indicted over a fatal shooting of a driver following a 100 mile per hour high speed chase in Buffalo in New York. Anthony Nigro IV was served with court papers, and he's pleaded not guilty to the charges stemming from the February 12th, 2022 fatal shooting of James Huber. James Huber was fatally shot by this man after a 100 mile per hour chase. I mean, this really puts into question, why in the world would this man chase someone through New York in a city at 100 miles per hour in Buffalo? If Nigro is convicted, he faces up to 25 years in prison. Wow. 25 miles per hour. And where's all lives matter? Where's white lives matter? Where's blue lives matter? I'm a black content creator. I'm talking about this. Why aren't they? Why aren't they? I mean, stories like this, it really shows you, right? The disregard law enforcement has for the citizen. Wow. 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 It is so sad what happens to the American citizen. It's so sad, man. So, according to the police, this is what the police are saying. This is what the fuzz are saying. On the morning of the incident, troopers got a call about Huber, who was seen speeding and driving erratically on I-90 and then on I-1 and then I-190. Troopers started chasing Huber, but the pursuit was called off after the driver struck a state police car and exited the highway. So, chase was called off, right? A short time later, Huber stopped his car near the intersection of Washington Street and East Eagle Street in Buffalo. As seen in body camera videos that were released by James's office in March, Nigro approached Huber's car with his gun drawn and yelled at him to get out. Nigro's body-worn camera shows Huber turning away from the trooper and telling him to go away as he refuses to exit the vehicle. Huber is seen reaching for something around the central console inside his car. The trooper then reaches inside the vehicle to grab Huber by the hood of his sweatshirt with one hand as he fires twice with the other, causing the car to lurch forward and crash. When Negro looks inside Huber's car, which flipped on his side, he is heard saying, Wow. He insulted the man after shooting him after the car flipped. Huber was unarmed. Wow. State Troopers Police Benevolent Association President Charles Murphy released a statement Monday arguing that Nigro should not have been criminally charged because he acted in line with his training and the law and was justified in his use of force. Murphy pointed a finger of blame at Huber's dangerous actions that he said threatened other drivers. So then you shoot this man and cause him to flip. That's your definition. That's your definition of lowering of actually lowering the danger. You shoot this man and then you cause him to flip. That's public safety. Wow, Blue Lives Matter. That's what you call public safety. A man is no longer here, and on side from that, you then blame the victim. Wow. But I guarantee you, All Lives Matter won't say anything about it. I guarantee you, I'm going to be the one they're going to lecture. Wow. Just wow. We got to get into this story, man. We have to get into this story. This one here was quite precious, man. Let's get into the story here, man. Let's get into the story here. So, family, this story comes from Texas and Austin police officers. This story comes from Texas. Austin police officers face new indictments for actions during 2020 protests in response to what happened to George Floyd. Now, 2 Austin police officers are facing some criminal charges. 2 Austin police officers are facing criminal charges, including Jeffrey Ting. So, these are some new indictments. Joseph Pesci is facing a charge for deadly conduct. Court documents say Samuel Kirsch is suing Pesci for knowingly firing off a firearm at him and other protesters. And that's also including Jeffrey Ting, who is facing an additional charge for deadly conduct on May 31st of 2020. On that day, protesters took to the streets and police used less than lethal beanbag rounds on some. These officers who were seeing people protest police brutality inside, they actually decided to engage in police brutality. Wow. Wow. Let's do that again. So apparently we have 2 police officers in Texas who are being indicted on criminal charges for their behavior in Texas during the 2020 George Floyd protest. Now, these 2 officers are Joseph Pesci and also Jeffrey Ting. And Joseph Pesci, he's facing the charge of deadly conduct because he decided to fire off some rounds at protesters. And also Jeffrey Ting here, he believes that he's a model minority. he decided to go ahead and assault protesters as well. Now, with that being said, what that definitely demonstrates is that while people were protesting police brutality, these officers decided to engage in actual police brutality. That's fascinating. You know, if a firefighter says, "Hey, you know, you guys are complaining about me fighting these fires. Let me go set some fires." I don't know if that's how you solve it. I'm just saying. I don't know if that's how you solve it. I don't know, guys, if that's how you solve it. Call me crazy. But I don't know if police brutality is what's going to change people's perception of police brutality. Let's read some comments here. Dak Dizzy says, "That's why Fester Bob says, I'm glad I stayed away from the area of this when it happened." Fester Bob says, "Nice analogy." Yeah, it is what it is. But I actually clip these clips and I actually make them into separate videos. So like that's why I sometimes I redo stuff. But man, it is some wild stuff that goes down right here in America, man. The cops here are not to be trusted. They are violent, man. Sorry about that. I need myself some fuel. Keep going. And I can't do that on TikTok cameras. But I can move on to the next story. Let's get into this next story, man. This is quite fascinating. Right? This story affects Muslims. Muslims who were targeted by the police in Memphis, in Tennessee. They were illegally targeted by the police, and that's why their charges were dropped. Let's get into this story here, man. So this story comes from Memphis in Tennessee. 3 of 4 men who were Muslims, or at least they have Muslim-sounding names, say they were wrongfully arrested by Memphis police, and they've had their criminal charges dropped. Jamil Ibrahim, Mohamed Saad, Hajaz Ibrahim Mahmoud, and Salim Ibrahim were all arrested on May 27th. And they were all charged with misdemeanor disorderly conduct. And also, Jamil Ibrahim, he was charged with 2 counts of misdemeanor assault on a first responder. Mahmoud had his charges dropped by prosecutors at his arraignment. And Hajaz and Salim Ibrahim had their charges dropped by Tuesday. Hajaz and Salim Ibrahim were due in court June 29th alongside with Jamil Ibrahim, who was the only person to not have his charges dropped. So these men were targeted for some reason. These men were targeted for some reason. Now, let's hear the statement. Let's hear a statement that was put out by the Shelby County DA, Steve Mulroy. He said, quote, "Frankly, based on our staff's review of the video and what we've found so far, we have some concerns about both Mr. Jamil Ibrahim's behavior in the altercation and then also the arresting officer's behavior," end quote. Oh. Mulroy said the charges against Jamil Ibrahim could be dropped in the future. So the charges against all 4 of these men could be dropped. So what in the world did the officers do to justify that? Don't you worry, folks. I'm going to follow up on this case and I'll find out and I'll be the first to tell you. Oh, you see what I mean? You see, when you read deeper into stories, you just hear all kinds of interesting things, don't you? Oh, so what do you mean all charges against all 4 men could be dropped, but you're very concerned about the behavior of the officers? What do these 4 men have in common that you had to arrest them like that? And why were you concerned about the behavior of the officers? See? Wow. let's get into this story here, man. So, family, this story comes from Florida. A pregnant woman was arrested in Boca Raton and placed into the back of a hot patrol car with the windows rolled up. And this woman, whose name is Nuriella Laurent, said that she couldn't breathe. I mean, why would you place a pregnant woman in the back of a hot car? A hot car! Lord! In Florida heat. So apparently the pregnant woman and her boyfriend were arguing. Black woman. Yeah, go figure. And according to some of the footage and body camera footage, the officer, whose name is Matthew McNichol, arrested this woman after he repeatedly asked her for her driver's license and he didn't. And apparently the officer arrested her because he asked her for a driver's license and she would not give over the driver's license, and she was arrested. And apparently he thought it was a great idea to place this woman into the back of a hot patrol car with the windows rolled up. That's ridiculous. And people are trying to muddy, her name by saying, well, she had this kind of conviction, that kind of charge, these kind of warrant. I don't care. She's a pregnant black woman. You don't put her in the back of a police vehicle in Florida heat with the windows rolled up. Because at the very least, can we all agree, the baby ain't do nothing? But I guarantee you, when it comes to Blue Lives Matter and people who support police officers, is either comply or you can get unalived. That is disgusting. That is a very disgusting mentality to have. I don't care what you've done. If you can't have mercy, if you can't have sympathy, if you can't have some kind of decorum with a pregnant woman, there's something wrong with you. I don't care what your political opinion is or how you see things. That is a pregnant woman. All opinions stop there. All back and forth stop there. All the deflections, all the reasons why, I know a good cop, all that stops at that point when I invoke a pregnant woman. You stop. You zip it. You don't even make a freaking excuse. Don't want to hear it. ACAB 1312. Don't want to hear it. Don't want to hear it, man. Man, oh man. We got a case of blue on blue violence, y'all. We got ourselves a case of blue on blue violence. Man, oh man. Let's get deep into this story, man. Let's get into this one, man. Man, oh man. Man, oh man. Whew. Oh boy. This story comes from Indiana. A corrections officer has been charged in the fatal shooting of another Department of Corrections employee in Indiana. Eric Salinas told detectives he went into 19-year-old Austin Bunn's room to clean his firearm and pulled the trigger, not knowing there was a bullet in the chamber. This is a case of negligence via firearm, and now someone has paid the cost with their life. A 21-year-old man is under arrest for the fatal shooting of another corrections office employee. Eric Salinas is accused of fatally shooting and firing his firearm with negligence upon Austin Bunn, who was just 19 years old. Just 19 years old. This young man will never see his family again because of the negligence of a law enforcement officer. Wow. Wow. And Salinas reportedly told detectives that his firearms instruction taught him to point the gun in a safe direction before pulling the trigger to confirm it isn't loaded, which he said he failed to do so. Court documents also say Salinas attended an annual department firearms qualifications course back in April. So, in that case, he was aware. He was aware of what he was doing. Wow. Let's go over that one more time for people who are coming in. This story comes from Indiana. You have a police officer here who has been charged with the fatal shooting of another Department of Corrections employee in Indiana, Eric Salinas. He fatally shot 19-year-old Austin Bunn because he was cleaning his firearm and he did not check to see if the chamber was empty. He pulled the trigger and Austin Bunn is no longer with us. Eric Salinas, he was trained in firearms. He confirmed that with detectives, and his department also said he was very much trained. And on May 5th, Salinas attended firearms qualifications again. So there's no excuse for this. There's no excuse for negligence when you are a police officer. When you are an officer of the law, if you have a negligent discharge with your firearm, you should face life in prison without parole. Period. I am judging you based on a military standard. Yeah, I don't want to hear the excuses now. I don't want to hear the excuses. There's no excuse for this. There's no excuse for this. You fatally shot someone because you pulled the trigger and didn't check to see if the chamber was freaking empty. That is basic firearm safety stuff, man. You're a cop. You're a cop. Listen, I'm in a state right now where it's legal to open carry. I carry guns all the time. Never once have I had a negligent discharge. Not even once. Never. And I never will. Because most of my firearms are locked up. And they're at a place where my son could never even reach them. And even then, there's two safeties. And even then, it's inside of a case. And even then, it's up high where he can't reach it. See, I overdo it when it comes to firearm safety because I respect the firearm. This man did not respect the firearm. That's what happened here. When you don't have respect for the firearm, things like that are going to happen. And it also shows you the very low standard we have for cops in this country. Can we just finally admit that? Can we just call a spade, man? Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh man. I wanna find out who this guy is, man. Carolina coastline. This is North Carolina right here. Yeah, let's get into this story here, man. So this story comes from North Carolina. We have a police officer who was arrested for DUI and he has resigned because he was on his motorcycle and he had a vehicle collision. This officer's name is Ethan John Bourne, and Ethan Bourne, he went airborne apparently when he crashed his vehicle while off duty, and he decided to have a little bit of sauce. He had a little bit of goose that gets you loose, and he decided to go and ride his motorcycle. Man, oh man, Blue Lives Matter. Is this your man's? You said that all cops are heroes. Well, I don't know if cops who drink and drive and they have the last name Bourne and they unironically go airborne, baby, like the wrestler. Oh, Lord. I don't know if you call this guy a hero. Just saying. Just saying. Oh, man. He was like Evan Bourne. You remember the wrestler from WWE? He went airborne, baby. Oh, Lord. Piggy, yo, that was an airborne piggy, man. Oh man. Oh boy, that was. Oh boy. So apparently there's an artist who's been hiding ACAB on NYPD police cars. I'm not kidding you. This is real. Okay? I want to find out. I want to find out who this artist is. That is great. Let's see. An artist here for Pride Month, they did some kind of depiction, right? And they put all colors are beautiful. And if you look at those words, it's ACAB. Oh, that is amazing. That is amazing. Oh. Oh God. Oh God. Oh. Oh my God. Okay. Okay. This is amazing. This is amazing. This is amazing. Oh man. Oh man. Let's get ready to this, guys. You guys are ready for this? Oh God. So, family, this story comes from New York. It's an amazing story. The NYPD accidentally paints ACAB on their Pride cop cars, and the internet is loving it. So, if you look at this little slogan here, it says right underneath Happy Pride Month, all colors are beautiful. And if you take the first letter in all of those words, it's ACAB, which is ACAB, which stands for all cops are, well, you know the rest. Oh man. And the best part about it is that the NYPD commissioner is the one who tweeted out the picture. Keisha Sewell tweeted out the picture. That is amazing. That is amazing. That is beautiful. I'm in love with this. That is amazing. Okay, LGBT community, that is a victory. Y'all win the internet for that one. Alright. Y'all listen. LGBT community, great job. Alright, y'all listen. Listen, if I had a hat, it would come off. Well played. Well played. Like, listen, I don't care how you feel about the LGBT community. You gotta admit, well played. Oh, God, that is. I've seen destruction, but you got your enemies to paint your look. Wow, that is beautiful destruction. That is beautiful. That is brutal destruction. Oh my God. Like, I've seen some Omega level trolling, but Jesus. You got the NYPD to paint ACAB on their cop cars. Yo. Bruh. Wow. That is wild, man. You got the cops to paint ACAB on the cop cars. You savages. Like, I mean, I use that moniker ACAB all the time, but Jesus. Well done. Like, mwah. Well done. Like, Jesus. God damn. If you go another officer here, man. Boy. So, family, this story comes from Delaware. We have a Delaware State police trooper whose name is Anthony DeGotti, who's been arrested in connection to alleged incidents that happened on March the 14th and November 22nd of last year in 2022. And it's alleged that this guy assaulted a woman. And he's charged with third-degree assault, 2 counts, terroristic threatening, 2 counts, and offensive touching, all misdemeanors. Wow, Blue Lives Matter. Is this your man's? You said that all cops are heroes. Well, I don't know if cops who are accused of things like this are what you would call heroes. But stories like this have become all too common amongst U.S. law enforcement because I do stories like this commonly. And if you go on my channel, just take a look. Take a look through all the stories and see the true face, the true face of U.S. law enforcement, the true face of Blue Lives Matter. Wow. Just another cop, another day, another cop with domestic violence. This story here is the one that I make sure I want to cover. Right? It's a story I want to make sure I cover. Let's get into this story, man. This story is a story of a police officer who shot his wife in the face with a rifle. So, family, this disturbing story comes from Texas. A Houston police officer whose name is Galib Chowdhury has been criminally charged after he allegedly shot his wife in the face with a rifle. This guy got into a domestic dispute with his wife and once again allegedly shot her in the face with a weapon. And the Houston Police Department didn't want to reveal this guy's name until I personally went on Twitter and put public pressure on these people. And I called them and I told them, if you did not reveal who this officer was immediately within an hour of me calling, I was going to find out who every Houston police officer was and put it out there to defend the public from people who would shoot their own wife in the face, allegedly with a rifle. I want to protect the public, and now you know who this guy is. Wow, Blue Lives Matter. Is this your man's? Is this your man's, Blue Lives Matter? Yeah, I had to actually call Houston PD, and I told them, I said, you haven't revealed who this guy, who this guy's, who, you know, what this guy's name is. They were hiding it. And I wanted to make sure they understood the costs going forward, that I, in terms of my role in going after police in the new black media, that they understood that when officers touch kids, when they harm a black person, when they disregard black people, yet our tax dollars pay their salaries. You do anything to a black child, or you harm a woman. We in the new black media do not tolerate that, because black men like Bill Cosby and so many others are held to the highest standard according to white America. So if that's going to be the standard, we're going to make sure you keep the same energy. You ain't got to worry about it. We're going to make sure you keep the same energy for you. We don't defend anybody who commit any kind of crime. What we are saying is that we are tired of the justice system being just us. We are not against justice. We are tired of it being just us. And so when you have officers, especially ones who are non-black, who commit these kinds of crimes, we want to know about it. Put their names and their mugshots out there the same way you do us. In short, as my folks would say, keep the same energy. That fair? I think that's fair. I think that's very fair. I find it interesting how whenever a black officer messes up, you can see their picture and their mugshot immediately. But when it's a non-black one, suddenly there's this concealment of their identity. And I don't like that. I don't play by those rules. So I told Houston PD, if I couldn't find out who he was exactly, then I got to reveal who all of you are. That's how we're going to play it. And then within an hour, they suddenly reveal the name. Oh, okay. Okay. And the other reason why I had no problem doing that was because when I look on muckrock.com, they have not revealed their actual police officer roster, and they are legally required to do so when someone does a FOIA request. So on the behalf of the unfilled FOIA request, I filled it for that person. I have the roster. I'm going to put it out there to make sure people can't hide officers' identities anymore. I'm going to hold police officers like Ghalib Chowdhury here. I'm going to hold them accountable whether or not Blue Lives Matter and police unions like it or not. I don't care if they like me or dislike me. What I care about is accountability. Anyone who gets in that way, anyone, even a non-cop who gets in the way of that is a part of the problem. Can't have that. Stories like this demonstrate why. I had to intervene to force them to reveal a name. This is why I didn't put anything out about the story, even though it just happened, even though I was commenting about it on Twitter. In fact, I'll even show you. On Twitter, I was talking about it. Here, as soon as they talk about here, it's right here, right? This is the Houston police chief, right here. Troy Finner, news briefing on an officer-involved shooting. Officer-involved shooting. Notice how they actually phrase this right. Officer-involved shooting. And officer-involved shooting. They didn't say that a police officer shot his wife in the face with a rifle. It's an officer-involved shooting. Right? And then I commented, I came in, I made cat double here. Strange how they want to hide the name so badly. The moment a citizen is arrested, they plaster their names all over the place. It should be the same even if you wear a badge. But I guess fairness and equity isn't a thing at Houston PD. Figures. Cops are cops after all. Disgusting. Because if you read the articles up until that point, no name was even revealed. So I called them and I said, you can reveal the one name or I can reveal all names. I told them one way or the other, I'm gonna get a name. You're gonna do that. Yeah. So they complied, which is I'm very, very happy to see that officers can actually comply the same way that they demand that others do. I'm glad that you can also comply, officers. And the next time when one of your officers commit a crime, how about you release the name immediately? Because next time, this is your one free pass, Houston. One free pass. If I ever deal with Houston PD ever again, I gotta reveal all the officers if they ever try to hide names again. We ain't doing that. I'm sick of the secrecy that police officers operate with. I'm tired of that. If you take taxpayer funds, if you call yourself a public servant, if you're given military gear, if everything that you are wearing in terms of your gear is taxpayer funded, you are even given federal funds. So I have every right to say, the next time your officer is arrested or accused of any kind of crime, you give the name to the people. And also, when people do FOIA requests, Houston Police Department, you feel them. Because it's as police officers always say, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about, right? Especially if you've done nothing wrong, right? Right? So I had to force Houston police to reveal a name. You know, that's just, it's something that I do all the time, but people just don't know that I actually have to force police officers legally to actually do the right thing. This officer shot his wife in the face with a rifle. I had to force Houston PD to reveal his name. I gave him an hour. I said, one way or the other, I'm going to tell the people that I know and who follow me, I'm looking for a 31-year-old officer, and I'm going to give you the entire roster of Houston PD. We got to find the officer. And that's how I worded it. Legally, you can't do anything about that. If I happen to uncover your roster because of your own negligence, that's on you. And me revealing it, well, that means I found it on the internet. Just very tough to find. This is why you don't make PDF files with your roster and you mention officers' names on it, because then I can find out your entire roster and I can piece it together myself. See? But I forced Houston PD to give out a name. They didn't want to give out a name at all. If you read some of the articles from earlier in the day, you will see that the officer was not named, or the articles have been updated with the name. They didn't initially reveal it until I got involved. And that's usually my role in a lot of these incidents. You notice on my channel, I reveal officers' names, entire rosters of police departments, because I hate it when they hide stuff. I don't like it. I don't want it. Don't do it. Federal dollars goes towards officers like Ghalib Chowdhury, who shot his wife in the face with a rifle, and other police officers who tried to protect him by hiding his name. If you are an officer who engages in the same kind of behavior as our friend here, Ghalib Chowdhury, or if you are an officer who hides his name when he does this kind of stuff, allegedly, we gotta know who you are. And I'm not gonna ask. I'm gonna just tell from now on. Because now that I see that there's no accountability, that lets me know I gotta push harder. It is not only unacceptable that this officer would allegedly do this to his own wife. It is even more disgusting that they want to hide who he was. Domestic violence amongst police officers towards their wives and their spouses, it is not uncommon. It's very common. This is why oftentimes police officers don't want to release names in police departments and police chiefs and sheriffs. They don't want to release the names of these officers who engage in this behavior, because again, it reveals a fundamental truth about U.S. law enforcement. Many of them engage in this behavior and they're never held to account. This time, it escalated to a point where a woman got hurt. I guarantee you there were signs. There were signs this guy was like this before. I guarantee you. I'm willing to bet any of my money. I would bet my life on it. There were signs. There were signs. And the most unfortunate part about this is that the conversation is going to be about gun violence. It won't be about domestic violence with police officers. Because this is a case of domestic violence. It is, absolutely is. But it won't be framed that way. It won't be framed that way. Because the conversation is basically going to be, well, he used a rifle. Most cops who hit their wives don't use a gun. So then you would point to the cops then, right? But I guarantee you this whole story is going to be about everything, right? Everything. But what this cop did to his wife and what many cops around the country have done to their spouses. The conversation will be about the rifle that he used. It won't be what he did, which so many cops do, but this country doesn't want to address for some reason. And I think that's the saddest part. I think that's the saddest part. Wow. Wow. Let's get into this story, man. It's a sad, sad, sad story, man. Sad, sad, sad story. Sad story. So this story comes from Ohio. We have a former police officer whose name is Benjamin Bishop, who has been indicted because his son is no longer with us, a 3-year-old kid. The 3-year-old got in control of this officer's weapon and pulled the trigger. Because of the negligence of a police officer, the 3-year-old is no longer with us. Blue Lives Matter. Is this what you call serving and protecting? A lot of officers engage in this kind of irresponsible behavior. It's just that this time a kid had to suffer. You'll black the blue until it happens to you. Damn. I heard about this case, man. So sad. Bishop is accused of leaving his firearm out, and that's how the kid got in contact with it. Yeah. Wow. Wow. So let's get into this story, man. Oh, Lord. This police department is being called the worst and most corrupt in America. 8 former/current East Cleveland Police Department officers have pled not guilty to dozens of charges, and that includes their former police chief, right? And you're talking about all kinds of crimes caught on body camera, and they have appeared in court and they're pleading not guilty despite all the evidence, man. I mean, just loads of evidence against these officers. Lord have mercy. I mean, what you have here is a training day on a level I don't think many of you are ready for. Now, when we go over this, I need you guys to sit back and just get ready for some of the accusations here, because it's kind of wild, man. It's kind of wild. So basically, you have Commander Larry McDonald and Sergeant Anthony Holmes, who were arraigned on the following charges: tampering with evidence, telecommunications fraud, obstructing official business, and dereliction of duty. McDonald was also charged with failure to stop after accident, and Holmes was also charged with obstructing justice. They pleaded not guilty and were released on $10,000 personal bonds. McDonald will be back in court on June 28th for a pre-trial hearing. According to court documents, McDonald tried to do a traffic stop on a 42-year-old man, and there was a pursuit. Court records showed the pursuit ended when the victim crashed his vehicle into a bus stop, right? And McDonald allegedly saw the crash and then fled the scene. He fled the scene. You watch a man crash, you don't even help. You just fled the scene. According to court documents, Holmes, an East Cleveland sergeant, called McDonald to tell him about the crash, but withheld that information from Cleveland police. Holmes and Tristan Honan also pleaded not guilty on Thursday to additional charges related to an October 3rd, 2021 incident during which Homan and Officer Ian McInnes tried a traffic stop on a 16-year-old in East Cleveland. After a pursuit, the victim sat down and placed his hands in the air, but McInnes ran up to the victim and kicked him in the groin. Wow. Homan and Holmes were indicted on additional charges: tampering with records, telecommunications fraud, dereliction of duty, and assault. Also on Thursday, officers Daniel Toomer and Tyler Munson were arraigned on charges stemming from an incident on April 10th, 2022, in which Toomer tried to execute a traffic stop on a 25-year-old man in East Cleveland. Officers Kyle Wood and Brian Stool were in another cruiser, and Munson was in a third cruiser. The pursuit ended in Cleveland. So basically, during the pursuit, officers initially reported that this man hit Wood's cruiser, causing him to spin out. Body camera video revealed that Wood was the only one who hit the man's car, causing the crash. Video also showed that during the arrest, the man had his hands up in the air and was not resisting the officer's commands. After the pursuit, Stoll assaulted this man and removed the man from the car, and then Woods assaulted that same man. Then Stoll forced the man back into the back of his police cruiser. That's when the man called 911 from his phone after telling officers on the scene he needed medical attention. Cleveland EMS arrived on the scene, but the East Cleveland officers sent EMS away. Wow. So they weren't even allowing EMS to help this man. They weren't even allowed. These officers, right, including their actual chief, these guys are super criminals. They've been assaulting people. You had officers from East Cleveland robbing people. You had officers from East Cleveland setting up people from freaking false charges. You had officers from East Cleveland, including their former police chief, who saw all this stuff and did nothing. Bruh. They did nothing. They knew this stuff was happening. Listen, they're saying this police department is the most corrupt pound for pound in America when you look at how many officers are there and how many corruption scandals and officers who have been brought up on criminal charges there have been. This is insane. I mean, the fact that the feds are involved, the fact that you've gotten so many exonerations and convictions overturned now, and you've had false convictions being sued over now, and you've had already settlements paid out. You about to have so many settlements. You about to have so many lawsuits. Listen, there's no way the state of Ohio and the East Cleveland freaking police are going to win any of those lawsuits. This is a mess. The taxpayers are about to pay a bunch of money because of the behavior and the criminal actions of their police. Wow. Wow, Blue Lives Matter. Thank you, Blue Lives Matter, for helping to cost the taxpayers even more money in the midst of all this inflation. Thank you, police. Thank you. This is very responsible behavior, very upstanding moral behavior that should be emulated by all people. Sets a great example for the kids. Beautiful. Wow. Just wow. Just wow. Well, folks, I think that's going to be a good note to end the evening broadcast on. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate you guys for hanging out with me, and you could have been anywhere else in the world, but you decided to be with the me on this evening. I gotta say, this was wild, but as a party note, please be safe tomorrow. Tomorrow's gonna be a spectacle. If you ain't gotta go out, if you ain't gotta go work, maybe stay in, because when Donald Trump goes on trial, it's gonna be wild. Anyways, until next time, horns up, peace out, good night, and good luck.